Legend of the Mist is on track to be my new favorite tabletop role playing game. This is because the game works minimally with very complex mechanics and subsystems, and it focuses on the narrative. The game is almost divided into three phases. Establish. This is when the DM describes what is happening within the scene. Action. This is where the player characters will describe how their characters respond to what the DM just described. In some circumstances, this will call for a roll. When that is done, the player will roll 2d6 and add power. Well, what is power? Power is the total number of tags that are relevant to the task being done. So let's look at our pre-generated character called the Wise One. They have a card called Apothecary. This is a collection of tags they have here. Currently, in this story, they've unlocked three tags on this card. They have Apothecary, Medicine Bag, and Quick Diagnosis. Whenever this story would call for a roll for them, and any of these three tags are appropriate, you just count them. So, let's imagine that the apothecary, this wise one, is looking at a collection of herbs or materials, and they're trying to determine if they know what they'd be used for. Perhaps they roll 2d6 plus 2 because they have the apothecary tag and quick diagnosis tag. Or perhaps they're trying to aid a wound. They can roll apothecary, medicine bag, and quick diagnosis for plus 3 power to their roll. I think this is incredibly brilliant because it encourages players to think of different ways to invoke their tags. And also, there are weakness tags. You'll notice here that the Wise One has the poor bedside manners weakness. That's the area highlighted in red. That means that they'll lose power when their poor bedside manners are relevant to the task being done. So again, this is a game that is deeply focused on the narrative. Like role play, like social combat and exploration, they feel less like separate pillars and more like ingredients that have been blended into a soup. Okay, but how are things on the game master side, or as this game calls it, the master of ceremonies? Well, game masters, you'll be looking at what are called challenges. These aren't just monsters. Challenges can also describe situations. But let's look at the monster challenge because that's what we're familiar with in most of our games. This is an awakened sentry. You'll get the name, you'll get some descriptive text, but let's look at the limitations. So, they can take up to two wound 2, banish 2, or they can't take being burnt at all. That is a flat out weakness. Do the players notice? Who knows? Depends on your cast. So, if a player were to roll with 2 power and they were to strike this thing, they would bring it down. But they also, in moments where it's now the consequences phase, let's look at the consequences they can apply to the players. They can apply slash 2, terrified 2, nauseated 3. Again, these aren't like keywords that you then have to go consult a rules glossary to determine what they mean. No. Like slash 2 is just, you're slashed to a point that's worse than slash 1. And if you ever reach 6, that's game over for your player. You know? Just be descriptive of what it looks like to have slash 2. Or how does your character behave? Well, no, that's more targeted to the NPCs. How do the NPCs behave when they receive Terrified 3? Let's look at another challenge. This is the Concerned Villagers. You can see here that this game does value social encounters, as the limits are about how the villagers are feeling. Depending on how the characters navigate this scene, the concerned villagers will accumulate a sense of panic, rally, or reassurance, and the different consequences that will happen in response to the player's actions. So again, this game is really designed to just target all three of those pillars and just naturally shift between them. It puts the narrative first, and this is a big reason why it will be my favorite TTRPG. No rules to memorize, nada. It just all flows very naturally and very easily.